From the Homestead Studios in Santa Clarita, California, it's just the Tip-Sters with Melissa Morgan.
Made in America.
Today with special guest Jerry Sigmund, Western North Carolina State Director of the Q Center for Missing Persons. Remember, if you've got a tip for Melissa, tell us about it by calling the Tipster hotline at 832-TIPSTER. That's 832-847-7837, or send an email to jttipsters@gmail.com. You just might hear your tip on the podcast. And now here's your host, trying her best to figure out a way to convert leftover birthday balloons into surgical gloves, Melissa Morgan.
More cowbell. More nitro gloves. More masks that don't hurt my ear with all its piercings.
More.
More. How do you like it? How do you like? I thought that was what that song was supposed to be about, but yeah.
No,
it's an interesting time, and I do want to say I occasionally see someone's post on social media or hear something that kind of gets me, and I have a friend, social media friend. He hosts a podcast. His name is Andrew, and he lives in Florida. And he said, "I'm really hating being a human right now. I'd rather be a blueberry or an aardvark."
Oh.
And I adore him. He's, married, has 2 sons. He's a stay-at-home dad. His wife is in the medical field, and he and another man host a podcast. And he is smart and funny and weird and fantastic. And while he would be a wonderful blueberry or aardvark, I'm glad that he's a human right now.
Yeah, it sounds like he's a pretty good human.
He's a very good human, and I felt that when he posted that on social media, that he really hates being a human right now, and I get that. I mean, I don't hate being a human. I, as producer Mark can tell you, I am on a roller coaster of emotions. I sometimes have made peace with the situation. I thought to myself, boy, you must really have surrendered because you ordered 2 new pairs of pajamas, i.e. loungewear, that I'm wearing right now. Not 2 pairs, but 1.
We took the dog for a walk and you wore them. They're very comfortable, I guess.
Well, yeah, they could kind of pass for, we could call it kind of a jogging suit, but it's not at all. I wore a jacket over it. Shut up. Don't make people think I'm walking down the street in a nightgown with the back flap open and I'm showing my ass. They're appropriate.
No, they're cute.
Yeah, they're very cute, sort of. Anyway, they're very comfortable. So I go through okay, I'm surrendering. I'm buying some comfortable things to wear around the house because what the fuck does it matter? And then I'll go from that to just, crying and pounding my fists on the floor. So thank you to producer Mark, and thank you to all of our beautiful tipsters for not just never speaking to me again because I'm a giant baby person.
Oh, you're doing okay. You're doing just about as good as any of us. You are. I think
you're much stronger.
No, we all react to it in different ways. I mean, I get absolutely, cranky and freaked out about work, and I deal with it in a different way than you do, but it's perfectly understandable. I mean, come on.
I appreciate that. And speaking of work, producer Mark is busier than I've ever seen him. The quarantine situation comes on the heels of something that is a very busy time of year for him anyway.
Well, this is just true generally about working from home. It's a good thing and a bad thing.
Right.
Is that your work is always there. So if you like to work, if you like your job like I do, and there's a lot of it, there's a lot of work, well, it's always there. And so, Melissa gets to see me do this, which is a very high pressure job, and with everything else going on, it just intensifies the whole shebang. And I sometimes just am like wild-eyed because I'm working on like 3 hours of sleep or something, and I'm just And then
a lot of Emerald's Big Bold Easy coffee.
Yes.
The Keurig has been, it's like we run a restaurant.
Yes.
Mark drinks so much coffee, which is great because then I can take the Keurig pods away from him and take the grounds, and I make a coffee scrub that I use in the shower.
See, there you go.
Yeah.
It's always, I've got the coffee with me right now here in the famous unicorn Sha-Da Fa cup that Pam Coronado gave you. And
it's very funny to see Mark on a video conference call drinking coffee out of one of our 1,800 unicorn mugs because he just grabs what he doesn't care.
Why do you think we have so many unicorn cups?
Because people are kind.
Yes.
And send me, I don't drink coffee.
I know.
I use them occasionally for soup or once a year for tea when I want something hot, which is pretty much never. But yeah, my unicorn mugs get a fucking workout because producer Mark is working from home and does not ever stop with the Keurig.
My two favorite is this one, the Shut-Fa cup, and the one that says, it's a picture of a unicorn. It says, she has beauty, she has grace, she can stab you in the face.
Yeah.
And whenever I'm having a moment with whoever I'm talking to on the video conference, I just hold that up to the camera to remind them.
I'm sure nobody thinks there's anything at all wrong with you.
There will be a unicorn flying
perfect and wonderful
through their computer to stab them in the face if they don't shut up.
Cup. Yeah, that's great. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So speaking of jobs, this is sobering. Last night on the local late news in Southern California, it said that only 46% of the state has retained their jobs.
It's
54% of those employed in the state of California are without their jobs. I was stunned. So we're really grateful that Mark is, employed in such an interesting job and such an interesting time. That horrible Chinese saying / curse, may you live in interesting times. Yeah, we're here now. We're in the interesting times, I think. And we're really grateful that Mark, loves his job and has a job and is so great at his job, and they know what a valuable asset he is.
And we're all grateful for those of you who are out there listening to us who are, going through some tough times right now. There's a lot of you out there who don't have a job right now, or you're on furlough or whatever.
Yeah.
And, we
had your hours cut. I mean, there's so many scenarios of what could be happening. And we understand that while this is an unprecedented, bizarre time in our lives, all of our lives, there's lots of things you could be doing. And the fact that you are listening to a podcast that we love doing is a gift to us. You are a gift to us all the time. Speaking of gifts, we have quite a few gifts in our life. And I hate saying gif. It's gift with a T, because gifts are different, but we have lots of gifts in our life. One of them is our friend Shelby, who has a small business that is struggling in this time of difficulty, and it's Beadceptions, altogether one word. And she makes these fantastic magnets and now wreaths with a TH, and with her perler beads. So she makes a design. You can make anything you want. She can personalize anything you want. And you can find her on Instagram at Beadceptions. And she is phenomenally talented and has such a great eye for design. I'm sitting here in my podcast room looking at my unicorn wreath that she made for me that was supposed to be for the holidays, but I love it so much it just stays up year round. It's I just love it. And her work is really interesting and, like I said, personalized. You can get things made specifically for you. I've purchased some of the magnets for gifts with a T, and I will be purchasing some wreaths with a TH for people because they're unique. There's just nothing like them. So check her out. And another gift in our life is our friend Megan, who is the host of the Shallow Dive podcast. She started the podcast with a partner, and the partner had to move on to another project. And Megan is quite honestly such an amazing human being. I'm really hoping she just hosts the podcast by herself. But I know she's looking at different options and rebranding it, but we want you to hear her promo right now.
My name is Megan Skeels, host of the Shallow Dive podcast. The Shallow Dive touches on everything from true crime, haunted places, retro television, and pop culture. Join me over at the Shallow Dive and follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Shallow Dive Pod. You can email me suggestions for the next episode or hire me for all of your voiceover needs by sending a message to shallowdivepod@gmail.com.
So Megan is one of the fastest, funniest, smartest human beings I've ever met. And I would love to see her do more voiceovers, but I really hope that she figures out how she wants to proceed with the podcast, because she is a brilliant light, and I can't wait to hear more from her. And I love her voice. And speaking of voices I love, our guest this week, this episode's going to maybe sound a little different. It was supposed to have had other guests. It was supposed to have one other guest, but we decided to give him a break because he is in law enforcement and he is remarkably busy. So this case came to us from Tipster Christina, and she wrote a very simple email that just shocked me and said, if you're looking for a case to cover, I am reminded of this case every week. And I don't know exactly what she means. I know she lives in the area where the man went missing. I don't know if she means there are billboards or there are news stories, which I don't think there are that many anymore. I think only when an anniversary comes up, because he's been missing since 2008. But the way she wrote it in such a way, it grabbed me. And this was several months ago. So I've been trying to get a hold of the case detective who's in charge of this. It's now considered a cold case, but it's still open and as active as it can be. And this detective is phenomenal. And I also wanted to get a hold of someone who was instrumental and is still working on the case. And he was introduced by producer Mark at the beginning of the podcast. His name is Jerry Sigmund, and he works with the Q Center, and CUE stands for Community United Effort. And this started in North Carolina, but they are so fantastic that they are now across the country. And I didn't even tell producer Mark, but I filled out an application to be a volunteer. Online.
Good for you.
Yeah, and you can do that, and we will give you the information at the end of this episode where you can volunteer if you have time, effort, and it can be in whatever state you're in, because they're really moving across the country, and they have lots of things you can help them with. You can do stuff online. You can, if you live in the area, you can, meet them there. That's another thing that I wanted to mention before we get into this week's interview, is that I heard another podcast a few weeks ago, and I believe that some of the family members were in New York and some of the family members were in Florida, and the woman is missing from Florida. And the family member being interviewed talking about the case happened to mention, I went to an event held by the Q Center, and I got very excited because I knew we would be having this interview with Jerry from the Q Center. And she mentioned how fantastic their events are, how much information that she got, because when you have a family member that's missing, we all like to think we would know what to do. And we all pray we never have to know what to do, that we never have to use those skills. But I don't know if, God forbid, anything happened to producer Mark. And I think if you have listened to a couple of episodes, you may understand that I started this podcast over 2 years ago now because a man went missing in my area, and his wife is living my nightmare. It's Will Sarazan, and his wife, after the third update, his third year being missing in January of this year, it makes me sick to say that out loud. His wife sent me a beautiful email and said, I want to commend you on your details, which means the world to me, because we've gotten some crappy, trolly emails from people saying that we got all the information wrong. And I was like, yeah, you know what? We didn't. And if I said something you didn't like, I'm sorry about that, but it was the truth as I know it to be. I would never not put out correct information. If I'm unsure of a piece of information, I don't say it. If I don't have something to vet it or back it up to prove it to be a true thing, I don't say it. I don't deal in, gossip and rumors. I'm not really good at conjecture. I may have an opinion about something, but I'll let you know it's just my opinion, and it doesn't mean shit. It's just my opinion. And who the fuck cares what my opinion is? But I was really grateful to hear from Linda Sarazan, and Will is one of the things that keeps me going. But this interview, I love Jerry Sigmund like he's a family member already. He is so open and so genuine, and I love his voice. And I hate accents. His accent is adorable.
Oh, he's so genuine. He's
adorable.
Just such
so
a
authentic
nice guy.
He is so authentic, and his accent is adorable. Love him. And he is just who he is. And I know I mentioned it a few weeks ago because we've been trying to get interviews with the Detective Adams, who is a stellar person also, but with Jerry, who in the time of a pandemic works for a paper products company. So we had time weeks ago to set up, try to have an interview. And he's like, I can't, work is so busy right now. And I was like, sir, you are doing God's work. You have all my blessings. You are a
national hero.
You are a hero. You fit us in when you can fit us in. And he did. And he is spectacular. And one of the things I loved so much is that he explained, probably before we started recording, that the county sheriff's office has opened Jeffrey's case to him. He said they have opened the books. They have been so informative and helpful because they're grateful for the Q Center's help. And I think for Jerry especially, he's an amazing man. And one of the things he says in the interview is that if you are a family member or a friend of someone who's missing, you just want to know that someone's working on the case every day. And you understand that people in law enforcement have more than one case. But when someone like Jerry Sigmund is assigned your case and he took ownership, he said, then I was given the case. And Jeffrey Lynn Combs' case is Jerry Sigmund's case. He completely took ownership of it. If I go missing, I pray to God there's a Jerry Sigmund that will look for me, because he is relentless. And part of that relentless drive that he has is that he had a godson who went missing. The outcome was not what you wanted, but he understood why it happened, what happened, and it doesn't matter. Jerry is the best representation for the Q Center. One of the things that bothers me about podcasts that cover missing people is the backlash they get, because people will write reviews or comments and say, well, this person was on drugs, or this person was a sex worker. And who the fuck cares? In Jerry's mind, he is just completely absent of judgment. And he says, you're someone's child. You're someone's sibling. I mean, he's just an amazing human being and such a great representative for the Q Center. He made me want to be a volunteer. And I don't know in what capacity I can be of help, but I checked there's probably 10 to 12 different ways you can be a volunteer. And I think I checked 6 of them. There are ways I can hopefully help even from California, because they have resources from all over. They have Texas EquiSearch. They provide counseling for family members. They're a nonprofit. They do this for the love of it. For, as he says, the best work. It's the best work because it's from the heart. Now, I mean, how amazing is that? Here this man is working his ass off at a full-time job in the time of a pandemic where we can't get toilet paper and paper towels, working his ass off at that, and then also volunteering and helping to find missing people. And I know that Lucy Combs, Jeffrey's mother, is probably eternally grateful for the Jerry Sigmunds of the world and for the Wilkes County Sheriff's Office that is really open and wonderful. And we were going to have Detective Adams on, and he is fantastic, but he's really busy. So we decided to go ahead with the interview with Jerry, because Jerry gives all of the important information, and we will have contact information at the end of this episode for sure. But Jeffrey's case is, I want you to hear this, because Jerry is working for Lucy Combs, Jeffrey's mother. Lucy is not getting any younger. She wasn't young when Jeffrey went missing. And she was a great mom and a great friend to her son who had been troubled and was trying to get his shit straight and was working hard on getting his shit straight and doing a good job of it when the unfortunate happens. And she's not getting younger. And I know Jerry wants what Lucy wants, which is to bring her son home. That's what motivates him to keep looking. We're talking about a very rural, densely packed with trees area. When Tipster Christina told me about the case, I went onto Google Earth and was overwhelmed with, I don't know how one gets an ATV through all of the trees on the mountains. I don't know how a drone helps you find anything, but they use everything at their fingertips that they have access to help bring missing people home. So Jeffrey Lynn Combs went missing in October of 2008. He'd had some run-ins with the law, and I'm not here to say he was a fuck up. I'm here to say he had a life that was uncomfortable and difficult, and yet still had a heart of gold. And what may have gotten him into trouble he couldn't get out of is his willingness to help people that were homeless. And that is not to say a majority of homeless people are murderers. Not at all. It's to say that sometimes people are bad, whether they live in a beautiful house or in a tent by the river. And Jeffrey had a tough life. Jeffrey's father was abusive, and Lucy took it as long as she could and got out with her kids. And at the time of Jeffrey's disappearance, Lucy wasn't a young person, and she was still working two jobs to make ends meet and to help Jeffrey get back on his feet. And the series of events they're just shitty. They're just shitty. Jeffrey was a teenager, and his father shot him in the neck. They were going to prosecute his father for attempted murder, and he refused to cooperate with the prosecution.
He refused to testify against his dad.
Against his dad.
For shooting him.
Yep.
Jesus.
Shot him in the neck. And so that case didn't go anywhere. His father, who he had a very troubled, obviously, relationship with, even after Lucy had left him and was trying to raise the kids and herself away from him, he had a heart attack and died on Jeffrey's birthday. That brought up some sort of argument between Jeffrey and his uncle, and Jeffrey went after his uncle with a sword.
Oh my God.
And his mom tried to intervene, and she got cut, but not, no one died. They were injured, but everything was fine. And Jeffrey's uncle pressed charges. So Jeffrey doesn't press charges against his father for trying to kill him, but Jeffrey's uncle presses charges against him. And he spends time in jail and was a model prisoner and released. And Lucy welcomed him back with open arms. And a few months after he's released from prison, he has a stroke. He can't use the left side of his body, and he can only use 3 fingers on his right hand. He got around with a scooter, a moped, and he went to every probation meeting. He was a stellar post-conviction citizen. He did everything right. He lived with his mom, helped her out the best he could, even with his physical issues. And he had invited a homeless couple to stay with he and Lucy. And they opened their home, and Lucy, God bless her, I guess after years of putting up with someone who's abusive and trying to keep everything together wouldn't take the behavior of the male who was staying with them because he urinated while standing on her front porch.
Oh, classy.
Yeah. And she made them leave. And
sounds perfectly reasonable
it
to me.
It does, but they were not good people and came back and wreaked havoc on the Combs household and the Combs life. And we are pretty sure Jeffrey is no longer with us. And we are even more sure that someone knows where Jeffrey is or what happened. So if you know anything, we will give you the information at the end of this episode. But this is the interview with Jerry Sigmund for Jeffrey Lynn Combs. We are really blessed to have Jerry Sigmund with us today, talking about a case that's very layered and troubling. And Jerry is this fantastic guy who I'm just going to go ahead and give lots of props to in this weird new world. He works in the paper product industry, and we had been trying to have an interview with him for a couple of weeks, but he's working his hind end off, trying to make sure we all have enough,
so to speak,
paper towels and toilet paper. So yeah, we're very grateful to Mr. Sigmund, so to speak, for taking time out of his day to talk about this case. So thank you for being here, Mr. Sigmund.
Sure. Thank you for...
Yeah, and you are with an organization that is, when a listener to the podcast recommended this case, I had never heard of the case, and it's difficult to hear about every missing person case across the world because there's unfortunately so many of them. But it's such an interesting case, and the thing that was so fascinating to me is the Q network, the Q Center for Missing Persons. Q is for Community United Effort. And then to find some interviews with Mr. Sigmund, who has done such amazing work on Jeffrey's case for so long, that was even more interesting to me. The person we're talking about is Jeffrey Lynn Combs, who went missing in October of 2008. And Mr. Sigmund is, I keep calling you Mr. Sigmund like you're my principal, but Jerry, I'm just going to call you Jerry.
Yeah, just call me Jerry.
Yeah. Jerry has worked on this case, and while I've done a tiny little bit of what Jerry has done, I kind of understand a little bit of the searching part. Jerry is like a force of nature and is very much still in contact with Jeffrey's mother, Lucy. And I'm just really excited to talk to you about this. And we had a conversation earlier, and you had kind of explained how you got involved with Q, but would you just remind me again how you decided to join this organization?
Well, actually, Q joined me. I have a godson that got missing, and it took quite a long time for us to find him. And in this process, you go through different organizations and different people. And somehow we were so lucky to get hooked up with the Q Center. And Monica Kayson come in and basically started giving direction. Mm-hmm. Because what people don't realize, when you have a missing loved one, you depend on the police to do, to go find them. But in that process, they have other work to do, and sometimes you're not top priority.
Right.
And with working with her, she's educated me and so many other people in what to do, what not to do. Don't become a criminal yourself.
Right.
Because you don't know what the laws are and what the guidelines are, but in that process, we've been so fortunately just to get her on our side and start working on our case, and with that being done, with all the support that we were given, you can't help but to give back.
Ah.
And in that process, that's what I do. So that my godsons, it wasn't just a tragedy. There's some good coming out of this, and me and his father and his mother, and my wife and the whole family, everybody's involved now.
Oh, wow. Wow. I mean, I am so sorry about your godson, and yet, like you just stated, what a beautiful gift it sounds like that came out of his situation, which, God forbid, none of us want to ever have anything like that happen to a family member. But wow, I had no idea that it was you, your wife, your godson's parents. I mean, it sounds like it really is a community effort. I mean, I'm really kind of blown away by what Q offers. So the mission is to join efforts with everyone involved in a case of someone who's missing. And I really loved that you said, Monica, who organized and started the Q Center, said, don't become a criminal yourself, because when you're searching for someone and you feel, the police are the agency that is supposed to take the lead. And you stated it so beautifully that there are also other cases on their desk. And you don't want to feel that your case is being shuffled underneath other files that someone may find more timely or important. And it's very easy to consider taking the law into your own hands. But that doesn't solve anything, really. It doesn't. And it can potentially make anything in the future involving a missing person moot, because, I'm always a little, I don't want to say angry, but perturbed when people say, oh, podcasts have helped solve cases. And I'm like, no, they haven't. What, law enforcement solve cases. But what a podcast is, what Q is, what all of these organizations that come together and provide pieces of the puzzle, they're helpful things. But when it comes down to it, law enforcement solves these cases. But it's invaluable to have an organization like Q, which you started in North Carolina, and now, from what I've read, you're available all across the country?
Yep.
Wow. I mean, that's pretty amazing. A lot of organizations like this are very located centrally to where, their headquarters are, or where, they have decided to branch out in a certain area where people have gone missing. But the fact that you offer these services, and I mean, you offer great support for people. So this is not just talking about Jeffrey's case or your godson's case, but talking about if anyone out there has a family member who's missing. Q, I can't even recommend you highly enough. You're amazing. You're a nonprofit 501c3 organization. Your volunteers are trained. You do literally boots on the ground, search and rescue. I can't. Why don't you, tell me some of the things that you offer?
Okay, what we offer is, if you have a loved one missing, what we need to do is, first of all, get you signed up with Q. We need proper documents to make sure that everything's been filed with law enforcement and everything's, proper. Once we do that, we come in and we start talking to the family, and we start advocating with the family. We start telling you what your next steps are. What can you do? What can you not do?
Right.
We try to help you all the way through the process. Some people, the process is quicker, moves more faster than others. Some of them are very long and drawn out.
Right.
So what we try to do is just, because there's no book, there's nobody that's going to tell you, hey, this is what's happening next. This is what
Right.
you need to be looking for.
Right.
This is what you need to be preparing for. And in most cases, the family just wants to make sure somebody's doing something.
Right.
And what we do is we come in and, not only will we come in and have a sit-down meeting with you, we'll give you our phone numbers. If you're at 2 o'clock in the morning and you're just completely distraught, we'll answer the phone and we'll talk to you, and we will try to answer your questions and just try to be there for you. Is the main thing.
The perfect word you used was advocate. You click into gear and you become an advocate right away, because God forbid this situation happens to any of us. Who knows where to start and where to turn? The first thing you do is call the police, and then you spend way too much time, in your own heart and mind, I'm sure, wondering what to do next. And so you guys provide support for families. You give them guidance on which way to go next. You do door-to-door canvassing. You provide canine search and rescue. It's amazing the support you provide. When you said advocate, it's an amazing word. It doesn't describe everything you do, but it's the best word because you guys do so much. I mean, you can even become a liaison between, family members and media. I mean, I'm amazed at, you offer counseling, raise money for billboards. I don't know that I've ever seen an organization like this. I really don't.
And the great part about this is nobody in our organization's paid.
Yeah.
This is pretty much what we do strictly through donations. We do searches. We pay to get there. We pay for our own equipment. We pay for our own training. In the Q, we try to do raise some funds to where we can help with like motel stays and stuff like that. But most of our people a lot of times they pay for their own.
It's a fantastic organization.
It's like a big family. Once you're a member of the Q family, it's something amazing just to be part of. Just people that's been where you've been, and a lot of them are people like me that have been in this situation.
Right.
And they're just great people. There's people that come out and search that's still looking for their loved ones, and they'll come out and look for somebody else's loved one, and they're still trying to find their
own. Wow.
Yeah.
That says a lot right there.
It's an amazing organization. Just the people are awesome. I kind of joke and kid people and tell them we're kind of like a traveling circus. We all get together, a bunch of clowns and stuff. It's hugs and say, hey, I hadn't seen you in a while. And it's really nice. And there's people that, we may be doing a search in North Carolina. We'll have people from Florida, Missouri, Georgia, just everywhere.
Wow.
And they all meet up in this one place, and we go out and, we look for people's loved ones.
And don't you even have like Texas EquiSearch on board?
We do.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have people. It's amazing to see everybody travel so far and come together for one common cause.
It really is an exceptional thing. Yeah.
Find somebody's loved one, and a lot of times when we come into town, people are wowed. But to us, it's just a day of work. It's what we do.
Right.
And it's the best work you can do because it's from the heart.
It absolutely is. Absolutely. It's amazing what I've read. That's why I'm saying I've never seen, I will be honest, I've just never seen an organization like this. It's something special, I really do think. And we will absolutely have the contact information for Q in our show notes and at the end of the episode in case anyone needs your services, because I can't recommend the Q Network enough. I'm blown away by all of the things you offer. I haven't even listed everything here, but it's take my word for it. It's a resource that would make a situation that is really terrible, it would bring you some peace because they know what to do. They click into gear and help you because who amongst us, so many people have or know someone who's missing or have a missing family member, but who knows what to do right off the bat? You spend a lot of time learning on the job, and what Q does is help you not have to learn on the job. They've learned it for you, and they can help you find the correct path to go down to make things faster, easier, and hopefully a better outcome. So tell me about Jeffrey Combs or about Lucy Combs, however you like to start it. But yeah, so Jeffrey goes missing in October of 2008, and he is an unusual case because he had some health issues.
Yeah. Well, let me back up just a little bit.
Sure.
Jeffrey Combs was probably not the most prominent person in society. He had trouble with the law, and he had a very troubled life. He is he had a real rough life. Spent a lot of time in and out of jail, but that don't matter. He had run into some trouble. Somebody had stole some stuff from him, and we think he had run into some dire trouble or trying to get his stuff back.
Right.
But when I got the phone call, I went and met with his mother, Lucy Combs, and she is a very extraordinary woman. She's an elderly woman, but she is tough as they come.
Yeah.
Been through a lot of stuff in her life personally.
Boy, has she.
Yeah, and trying to raise her kids and stuff. And when you get cases like that, a lot of times the general public's not interested.
Right.
Okay? Jeffrey had been in a lot of trouble and caused a lot of trouble, and who really wants to find that rascal? That's what I was met with.
But he, not to interrupt, but I'm not giving him a pass because he made some poor choices.
Right.
But let's talk about the fact that when he was a teenager, his father tried to kill him and shot him in the neck.
Yeah. That's one thing.
Yeah, that's one thing. And he, ironically, he did not cooperate with the prosecution, so the charges were dropped. And then his father dies of a heart attack on his birthday.
Yes.
And he gets into a scuffle with his uncle with a sword and injures his uncle, and actually even, injured Lucy, his mom, when she tried to intervene. And his uncle did press charges. Mm-hmm. And he spent time in jail for that. And when he was released in 2008, he had a stroke and was unable to use his left arm and could only use a few fingers on his right hand, and was trying to keep his head up and trying to be a better person. He went to all of his probation appointments and moved in with his mom when he couldn't take care of himself much anymore. I mean, he made some mistakes. Who hasn't?
And through all this, he, the boy's still got a big heart. He's still out. He had this thing for homeless people, trying to help them.
Yeah.
You could just still see the good in him.
Yeah.
But with all that being said, it don't matter, and that's the great thing about the organization I am. It don't matter who you are, where you are, what your past was. We really don't care.
Right.
The thing is that you're still somebody's child.
Right.
You're still somebody's brother, sister, aunt, whatever. So, a human life's a human life. We don't care about the past.
Right.
We don't care if he was involved with drugs or prostitute. That means nothing to us.
Absolutely.
Now, we may ask you those questions when we come in to help profile the case.
Yeah, victimology. Sure. Yeah.
But it don't matter. We don't care. We're gonna come in and do what we need to do. But with all that being said, we feel like Jeffrey had went down, tried to recover some of his property, and he had run into some people that wasn't the best people for him to run into.
Right.
The night before he got missing, they'd actually had beat him up pretty bad and left him in the river for dead.
Oh.
And he was somebody that actually had stopped on this bridge and heard him screaming, so they brought him home. His mother worked nights.
Right.
And when she come home the next day, there was the next morning. Actually, Lucy worked 2 jobs.
She did.
Yeah, she worked at
the
Tyson Foods.
Right, the factory.
And then she went to a nursing home.
Yeah,
and worked
did
the night
laundry.
shift.
Yeah, did laundry. She worked 2 jobs. I mean, she was working her ass off.
She really was. And she comes home the next morning, and there's a note on the table said, look, I'm going to get my moped, and if I'm not back, you come looking for me.
Right.
But in that process, she found some clothes that were wet and stuff. She didn't know the history that what had just happened to him.
Ah.
And there's actually food still cooking on the stove.
Right,
when she
pork
got
chops.
Home, so she barely missed him.
Right.
And anyway, Jeffrey never come home, so she goes looking for him, and then she files a report. And things in the beginning, never would bash police, but there's things that probably could have been done a little different. There always could.
Right.
finally hooks up with the Q, and I get the case.
Right.
And then when I get the case, we go in and we try to figure out, where's the last place he was, the last place he was actually seen was at home. So we have to try to move out, and he got missing in North Wilkesboro, North Carolina, and that's not some of the easiest terrain to try to search.
No. I actually looked on Google Earth, and it's quite beautiful, and boy, is it dense.
Yes, and the area he got missing in with the people he got missing from, I have looked high and low, went back to most places multiple times, and I still haven't found Jeffrey yet. But
Right.
just because I haven't found Jeffrey yet, don't mean that I've stopped trying to figure out where's my next place to
Of course not. Of course not. So let's talk about the people. He had invited a couple, a male and a female, to live with he and Lucy, and the male exhibited some bad behavior by urinating off the front porch, and Lucy said, "Get out."
Yeah, she run them off.
And do you feel like that they came back to get some sort of revenge, or do you think that the evening before, when Jeffrey had been beaten up, that's what happened?
I'm pretty sure that after he had kind of befriended these people and they'd come, I think those are the ones that had stole from him.
Mm-hmm.
And they lived in a homeless camp
Right.
down on this river. And I think he actually went down there and seen that his moped was there.
Ah.
And that's where everything escalated from the first time. And I didn't know Jeffrey personally, but the people that know Jeffrey said, look, if he went down there and he had seen his stuff there, that he was going back to get it.
He was scrappy, yeah.
Yeah, he was a scrappy type fellow. No matter how much
Debilitated.
he hurt or
Yeah.
disability that
Right.
he had, he was going to get his stuff.
Right.
That was just Jeffrey.
Right.
And we think that, that's where things went really wrong, is when he went back the second time.
So when eventually Lucy, I believe, before police finds a camouflage jacket he had changed into and his scooter, a couple in the homeless camp says, oh yeah, he got into a car with two women.
Oh, yeah. That's their story, and they're sticking to it.
Right. Okay. And I'm going to go out on a limb here. I sure didn't know Jeffrey either. But I don't see Jeffrey as the guy who gets in a car with two women and leaves his mom and starts a new life somewhere. That just doesn't, it doesn't feel like his MO. Yeah.
Not at all.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not even close.
Right. So these people that have been interviewed numerous times, apparently, by the police and by Lucy, and who knows, maybe by you, they just won't give up the nothing. They just, yeah.
and it's kind of ironic. The North Wilkesboro over there is a kind of unique set of people. A lot of people over there that are homeless and that type of people, they're very tight-knit people. And they're not the type that's going to, you could offer them $1 million and they could be as poor as the world, and they're not going to still tell you nothing.
Right.
They're very loyal to each other.
Okay.
And the bad part about this now is two of the people that I think are main suspects have passed away. They're no longer on this earth.
I knew one. I didn't know two. So two. And then I think you had mentioned to me earlier, the one person who is still alive that may know information is not mentally capable of answering anymore.
They actually are, but with the lifestyle that they live, I don't know how much credibility they would ever have.
I see.
This person is actually, she's come in, the law enforcement has talked with her, and she's agreed to do polygraph tests and everything else, but she never shows up.
She
never does what they're supposed to. And
I see.
I can't remember.
Right.
And we've even offered a somebody to hypnotize her.
Wow.
And she never shows up for that, so
Right.
It's rather frustrating.
It would have to be. I mean, so the at least one person who knows what happened, and there are probably many more around, but at least one person who may be more intimately involved with the situation is still in the area.
Yes.
Okay. And the other two people have since expired. So that's a sad thing that, important information went with them, apparently. That's a bad thing. So Lucy has been diligent in keeping Jeffrey's name out there and trying to do everything she can. I mean, God bless her. She didn't even, work to have him declared deceased until last year, like 11 years after he went missing, basically to get his insurance. That says a lot. She could have done that much sooner. And
she would have never done that if it wouldn't have been for health reasons for her and
Right.
been financial burden. She would have still kept paying everything, and she would have never done that. But, she had some health issues, and she continues to fight. And that's the only reason that she did it then.
Right. It was a necessity.
Given up, and
No,
she still ain't given up.
absolutely not giving up. You could feel that in any interview with her. She's never giving up, but it was a necessity at the time. I completely understand. So let's talk about that. Lucy wasn't a youngster when Jeffrey went missing, and it's been almost 12 years now. And, time goes on, and you've probably seen more than anyone the effect it has on family members. It must age them, and I'm using that as just kind of an umbrella term. It must age them quicker than we can imagine. Just the stress on their bodies. Physically, mentally, emotionally. How is Lucy doing?
Lucy's doing, I'm not going to say she's doing the best. She's still doing pretty good. She's a real scrappy lady. She's very, very tough. I'd compare her to a grizzly bear. Tough. And the thing about that keeps getting Lucy is people keep telling Lucy stuff. Unfortunately, that's part of this whole process. People will continue to tell you stuff, make up stuff,
Right.
come up with stuff, and and she still fights down every one of those leads. If she has to do it herself.
Wow.
If somebody tells her something, she's going to find out. And I've had to have conversations with her on many occasions with Lucy. Look, I don't need you putting yourself in harm's way doing this. If you're going to do this yourself, call me.
Right.
We will do it together.
That's who you are. That's who Q is.
Yeah.
And that, that makes sense. And that goes back to what you said almost at the beginning here, that, Monica is like, don't do anything illegal. Don't get yourselves in trouble. And it's so difficult when you think, I have, like I said, a very limited amount of experience in searching. But when someone's missing, which is one of the reasons I started this podcast, as a local man to my area is still missing 3 years later. And we sort of know what happened, much like in Jeffrey's case, but we don't know where he is. And people come out of the woodwork when someone's missing, whether there is a reward or not. If you add money to it, more cockroaches come out of the woodwork. But even if you don't, the number of ridiculous tips that we got, checking in fields, it's like he's buried behind the bamboo, and it's like, no, he's not. That's a totally open, it's not going to happen. So I feel so much for Lucy. And this is someone that I didn't know, but someone whose case touched me so much. Is, besides the fact that I promise we'll put up all the information about the Q Network, is there anything else that you want us to say about Jeffrey's case, or anything you want to say about Jeffrey's case?
The only thing I want to say about Jeffrey's case is somebody knows something somewhere.
Yeah.
And if anybody that knows knows has any empathy whatsoever for the human life, and for the fact that some elderly woman, that all she wants to do before she leaves this earth is to properly bury her son. Please come forward and say something. Please. I mean, at this point in time, that's all the woman wants. That's what keeps her drive.
Right.
Keeps the drive of her going. Is the fact that just to try to find her son.
Yeah, I think it's all of us need to think about bringing peace to someone like Lucy Combs, who has gone these almost 12 years not knowing where her son is or what happened to him. And you're absolutely right, Jerry. Somebody knows something. It doesn't matter if the people that may have been more closely involved with what happened are no longer here. There's absolutely more than one person left on this earth who knows where Jeffrey is and what exactly happened. And we will absolutely have the information for the Wilkesboro County Sheriff's Office and for the Q Network. And boy, are we really grateful that you came on and talked to us, Jerry. Thank you. And thank you for everything you do.
Sure, no problem. Thank you guys for what you do.
One of the things that really struck me, so many things struck me about what Jerry said in the interview, is that the Q Center gives family members guidance. The word advocate, it just doesn't feel like that's enough. They do a lot as advocates to advocate for family members with missing loved ones.
You can tell just by listening to him that he's just, it's not over dramatic. It's just absolutely from the heart.
Just what it is.
Absolutely real and intense,
authentic.
But yeah, it's just amazing.
He is a stellar human being. That's why we felt it was okay to release his interview without having talked to Detective Adams, because I don't think Detective Adams would mind at all. He's very busy, and I know he knows Jerry is a fantastic representation for the case, for the family, for Lucy, and for Jeffrey, for what's happening, and for the Q Center. The Q Center, gives loved ones with a missing family member the space to figure out, okay, what do I do next? The guidance, okay, where do I go next? The security, the feeling that someone is actually looking at their family member's case. And the fact that they provide all this, and Jerry says, I found something good that happened out of my godson's case. I found this work at the Q Center, his volunteer work at the Q Center, and he will not give up. And the beautiful thing, he said, is that it's the best work you can do because it comes from the heart. That's amazing. That's the person you want working on a case if you have a missing family member. So the Q Center, the information is, their website is ncmissingpersons.org. NC stands for North Carolina. They are, nationwide now, but ncmissingpersons.org. You can look there if you have a missing family member. You can look there at their volunteer opportunities, because I think there's something all of us can do if we have the time or the interest, because it's such a fantastic organization. I can't say enough about them. If you know anything about the Jeffrey Lynn Combs case, please contact the Wilkes County Sheriff's Office at 336-903-7600. That's 336-903-7600. And more cowbell.
If you'd like to support the podcast, go to patreon.com/justthetipsters.